And I'm back. I apologise about that. I have no idea if YouTube is going to complain at me for that one. Let me go check. So, I am back. So let me go share that, make sure people can still see it. I am back. Sorry about that. So, sorry if I lost anyone there. Hopefully you've all made it back okay. Let me carry on. It seems to have got confused. Sorry, Welsh internet, what can you do, right? So, I'm expecting the phone to equal string now. So what we're doing here is we are creating a new contact by the handle method on the action. We're going to pass through a contract factory and we're going to make it using these attributes. We're going to expect it to be a model that comes back and we're going to expect the phone to equal string. So let's run our test and see what happens. We're failing. Okay. Hi, darling.
Super quickly, I don't know if it's just me, but you froze on the telly and my phone.
Yeah, it went offline. I've only got one viewer. I don't know who's watching.
Me.
Just you.
I think it's me. I'm still here.
Oh.
It could be somebody else. I'm not denying that. I just didn't know if you were aware because obviously where it stopped.
The internet went. I've rebooted the Wi-Fi point. Welsh internet.
But I was just, I wasn't sure if you
Still
were
only
aware.
got 5 Wi-Fi points on. Weak connection, so it'll be off this point now. So.
Yeah. So I just wasn't 100% sure if you knew.
Yeah.
If
I noticed it come up and tell me and said.
Okay. I didn't know if it told you.
You can pause. Your internet sucks.
I didn't know if it told you or not, so I thought I'd come up and.
Thank you.
I'll go again now. As long as you were aware, that was all.
Cheers, darling. Love you. And I'm sorry, I am back. So, right, where were we? What was failing? So, it was failing because I typed at the wrong point, basically. That happens, as I usually do. I swapped that to something like that I'm not meant to, and it died on me. Oops. Right, so that is how we're testing our actions. There is our action. Here's our contact, which is what's been tested. We've got that tested. We've got a handler being tested. A handler is being tested. It's making sure that the event is being stored. So we are now pretty much up to date with creating a new contact. That works. We've refactored that to event sourcing. So let me walk you through how that event sourcing aspect actually works. No kind of tutorial bank stuff, no kind of abstract, this is how to do it. I'll walk you through how this works. So, in our controller, typically what we'd do, we would store that data straight away. Just thanks for the data, store it. Or if you're scaling your API, your application, you'd push that to a background worker who would then go ahead and store it. One and the same. You're taking that data, you're putting it in your database, and that is it. With event sourcing, what you're doing is you're going, okay, thanks for that data. I'm going to take that data and I'm going to push that to an aggregate, to something which is going to persist that data into the database. But in doing so, I'm going to use an event. You need to use an event to store this data. So as you can see, we're going to use a create contact method, which will emit an event. It's going to emit a new event with the arguments that it requires by us passing it some arguments. And all we're going to do, this could be an array, this could be a string. I'm using a value object factory to create a value object to pass it through, but that's just how I like to do it. The next step, obviously, we're going to record that we're going to create a new event here. We're going to record that this happened, basically. We're going to say, okay, so record this event, and then we're handling, in the background, we've got a projector, or we've got a handler that is going, okay, so in the background, I'm listening for these events that might happen, much like your events and listeners work. And in my handlers down here, we've got a contact handler. And the way that it works, it goes anything after on, that is your contact, that is your event name. That's how it's doing the mapping. It means you don't have to do any sort of big, if you've ever used like League Tactician, where you've got to build up a kind of an array of handlers and events for the things to start listening to each other. This is mapping it automatically in the background by prefixing everything with on, standards that you can use. It could be handle, it could be anything, but all it's doing is use projected events, get name, handles events, handles new this, public accepts, handle new, blah blah blah. It's recording all of these things for you, nice and clean, nice and simple. So we're just going to record this new event, and then we're just going to return ourselves, which is why our aggregate also needs to persist. I mean, technically we don't actually need to do that. We could just quite simply do that. That's a little bit cleaner. Then obviously, if I make a test again, unexpected return, store controller. I do that all the time. Why do I keep doing that? There we go. Tests are still passing. So what we're going to do is we're going to record that new event, and we're going to persist. We are persisting that event, and that persists there. That is the key. That is where we are saving that event to the database so we can react to it. So then we can just quickly throw a response back and say, cool, thanks for that. I've accepted that response, but you don't need any data back because I'm handling it. I mean, I could pass an array of, message and say something like, thanks buddy, I will get on that for you. Something really random. It could just be message style, we're processing your request, we're storing your contact, we will, please refresh to see your contact. Whatever you want your wording to be, that's more down to you. That's nothing to do with the application or an API. That is kind of how you want to work for your app. It's nothing that I can teach you. So then what happens is, in the background, as you can see in our event sourcing provider down here, is we've told Projectionist to listen to this, a contact handler, which will then, when we see that event being triggered, we go, okay, cool. So I'll take that event. Thank you very much. Don't need to return anything. I can now run my action, pass through the event object, and I'm done. That will create it. Really clean, really simple, class after class. Each bit has been tested in isolation, and we have tested it across the board. So we've got well tested, well typed, statically analyzable. We're good. That is how to refactor something, piece by piece. Red, green, refactor. You get red in your console because your tests are failing. That is okay. Red is good. Red might always makes you think, oh, what's broken? But no, it's good. If you're refactoring, red is good. It means you're making those changes that you need to do. As long as you're going from red to green, you're absolutely fine. So don't be afraid to fail on tests, because all tests should fail at some point. Next one is our update controller, and we pretty much go through that same process. So all we're doing inside here, we are validating using a form request, passing through a string for the UID to stop any sort of root model binding stuff that we might need to worry about. Now we can simplify that one quickly. So what we do a quick lookup. First will fail. That could potentially fail. So we can write a test for that one. I don't actually think I've got any tests for this. So how about we write a test for this part first. So let's come to my tests unit. Let's just refactor, rename. Endpoints test. And what we'll do, we're going to create a new directory, contacts. I'm just going to move them into there. There we go. That's a lot more organized now. So our endpoints, what we've got all the way down here, we can update a contact. So we're going to log in. We create a new contact. Then we do some put JSON and say, okay, so when I send a request here with this, I expect a status of accepted back. And I expect that when I refresh this contact, my first name is what I have set it to now. So we obviously need to do the unhappy path testing. So it throws an exception when incorrect, when cannot find contact on update. So we just want to basically we'll do a not found there, but this stuff obviously want to do that. So let's come down to our data sets. We've got strings. So what we're also going to do, we're going to create another file in here. We can create UUIDs. So it's going to be exactly the same. So UUIDs, UID to string. Don't be afraid to do these sorts of things. You know, creating a specific data set for your test suite. It's showing thoroughness in what you're doing. So there's our UID. So in our endpoint test down here, we can say with if I spelled it correctly, obviously. So with UIDs, and then up in our method up here, we can accept the UID. UID. And then what we'll do is let's go swap string for UUID where we need to. I mean, the point is it's not going to find it, but we still need to get past validation. That is the main point here. So let's just make sure we get past all of that. And obviously, because it's a put, I'm passing that whole request back, not a patch. So that's just how that's going to work. So let me just do that. And we fail. So throws an exception, 401. We're getting a 401 because we have not signed in. And this is what testing is all about, right? I mean, I'm making sure that my application is working. So next step, great. The given data title must not be greater than. Okay, so for that one, I'm just going to say doctor. Something random. Here we go. Make test. Let's make sure we're passing validation before I worry too much. And now we're fine. We are receiving a 404. Technically, because we're going to put JSON, we shouldn't have an exception. We should get a status code back. So maybe the wording needs to change. It returns a not found status code when updating, when trying to update a contact that doesn't exist. There we go. Make a test. Let's do it again. So there we go. It returns not found status code when trying to update a contact that doesn't exist. So there's our unhappy path tested. So I'm not going to worry about Git. I'll do the version control a little bit later. Someone actually asked me the other day, I don't know if you're still watching, Michael, why I don't use the Git integration with PHP Storm. So the reason I don't use like the Git integration or use any fancy kind of quick actions with PHP Storm is because I want to show you what I'm doing, not hide it behind this integration down here where I can go through, I can select my changes, I can commit them. I want to show you how if you haven't used Git before, it's very helpful to watch someone doing a commit. If you're not used to some aspects of like PHP Storm, for example, using some of the inbuilt methods and that sort of stuff, it doesn't really help you as such. So that's one of the reasons I do it. Just to let people know in case they were also wondering. So, okay, so there's my update. We've tested the happy path, we've tested the unhappy path, so now we need to refactor. So, I need to keep an eye on how long I've been streaming for. Let me go over to YouTube. I'm just going to open this up on YouTube and just check the time. Started streaming 76 minutes ago. Awesome. So I'm watching myself on that screen. Right, if I refresh that, will it autoplay? Yeah, for some reason it's switched straight to like a live stream. Oh, hey, hey Ryan, cheers buddy. I don't know what happened there, so let me. I'll have to see what I can do afterwards. So now that I know it's working, it's just a different link. So let me just quickly share that one. New link for live stream. Tweet that one out. There we go. Let's just get that out there so anyone who needs to join can join. So, right, where were we? So, what we want to do is we create a contact. This isn't going to happen though. So, we've got a contact. So, we want to expect that the eloquent stored event query count to equal 0. So at this point we haven't stored any events, so we shouldn't have anything stored. Make sure that at each part of your test, when you're writing these tests, you want to go, okay, so am I set up to run this test? Because the last thing you want to do is, have I got the right trait installed? Have I cleared things? Is this set up in a way that I know that what I'm testing is going to work? Give yourself the best fighting chance. And if that means you've got to do another assertion or an expectation and another query to make sure that what you're testing is what you're testing, it's worth that extra little bit of time. So we're going to do that there. Then we're going to replace that. And we're going to expect it to be 1. So this is where we should hopefully fail. And if it doesn't fail, I'm going to be really worried. And there we go. Expect, fail to setting that, and 0 matches the expected 1. So now we can come back to refactor. So the first thing we want to do is we've got accepted, great, we've already doing the right thing in our test there. But what we're going to do in our update controller, here's our value object, here's our contact. We're not actually going to run this action here. This is all going to change. So our data is going to be null. So what we want to do is we want to get our contact aggregate root. We're going to retrieve the UUID. We want to retrieve any update actions. I always tie back to that model UUID. So that's actually the UUID that we passed in here. So update contact. What is going on? Update contact and persist. So the value object that we're going to pass through is that. However, we need to pass more than just a value object, because we also need to pass through we don't want to pass the entire model. That's completely pointless. But what we do want to pass through is that UUID. That means we can remove all of that. Obviously, that doesn't exist yet. This will still fail, but it will fail for a different reason, and that's fine, because we're making progress. So it's currently giving us a 500 error, as you can see here. So if we scroll up, call to undefined method, update contact. So next, we know what we need to do. We need to come down to our aggregate root, and we need to go public function update contact. Now we know that's going to accept two things. It's going to accept our object to start with. You know, that's our request body at this point, and we're going to accept a string for the UID, and we're going to return ourselves. So again, just as before, we're going to say this record at this domain event. We're going to say new contact was updated, and what we're going to pass through to that event is again our object and the UID. Return this. So again, we're going to fail for another different reason, which is fine. And so if we scroll back up, it's always useful to check these things. So class contact was updated, not found. Just make sure it's failing at the point where you're expecting it to fail when you're doing this. So we can create a new class. And this is going to extend the should be stored. We can quickly simplify that domain there, and then in our constructor, public function, bear in mind that anything that you add on this constructor is what's going to be serialized for your event data. So I'm storing an object in it instead of passing through attribute after attribute after attribute, or passing through an array and just storing arrays. I'm passing through a value object because I want to serialize that object. So we can say public object, and we're going to add a public string UID. There we go. So then what we can do, we can actually import that class, make test, see how that goes, and we're good. Because we've already hooked up the aggregate root, and we've already hooked up the we haven't done the projector, so we're testing that the event is being stored. We're not testing that the implementation of what we actually want to do is changed. So next step, there's our aggregate root. So this test is refactored, and this is fine. However, the handlers test, what we haven't done is we haven't tested that it can update. So it can update a contact. So much like before, what we're going to do is we're going to get a new event. So let's do that there. put that there. So what we're going to do is with strings again, and we're just going to pass in that string. That'll resolve that. Contact was updated. Contact was updated. Simplify that one. And that's going to accept two things. It will have that part, and have that UUID, so we can say string UUID to string. So let's just pull that in. Down here, there we go. Cleaned up. So contact was updated. What we want it to do is we want to make sure that it is, it has no issues being built at all. We want to make sure that the kind of the constructing of this is not going to fail for any reason. Make sure you're passing the correct types through the connection of objects that you are using. So there's that step. So then we want to say, okay, so there's that. So what I can do actually, I can do contact equals contact factory create. Then instead of using that down there, I can say contact UUID. That's a little bit more important than a random UUID. So that is that. So in a minute we're going to expect us to have one. I don't need to do that. That expectation is not proving anything. So what we need to do is next we need to call that handler and say on contact was updated. And what we need to pass through that event. And then we want to say we expect the contact refresh. We expect the phone to equal the new string value that we have set, that we're using in the fake aspect. So that is obviously, that's going to fail. Expecting that to fail, and expecting things to fail is great. Let me go to my channel. Let's go to, there we go, live stream. Let's make sure things are running. So we're failing. Why are we failing? Undefined method on contact was updated. Great. I can now come back. I can come back to my handlers in here, and I can say, okay, so I need to make a new one and say public function on contact was updated, and contact was updated. Here's my event. We're not expecting anything to be returned. We're going to hit the action. Here's that, and we expect a contact. I might refactor that one, so we're going to go for a the UUID at this point. No, we'll keep it as is, I think. The implementation should fail, not the final part. So the contact will be a contact, which we will get in a minute. Attributes is going to be event object to array. And what we want to do is contact equals do we want it to work like this? it doesn't feel like it should happen here. So I'm going to pass that UUID through here. There's our event UUID. So we need to go back to here. Means we don't need. Okay, so we do need that. What we need is contact equals query where UUID is UUID update or fail. So what will that do? I'll return false basically, update or fail, and that is expecting an array of attributes. There's our attributes there. So we can just remove that. If contact is false, and what we want to do is throw fail unhandled throwable. Okay, so what we can do instead is we can wrap this in a try catch maybe. We're going to try to update. We're going to catch any sort of throwable exception. And then what we'll do is a new directory, some domain exceptions, and we can do something like a PHP class, and we'll say contact update exception extends exception. Something simple, you know, it doesn't need to be rocket science at this point, right? It's just a very simple exception. So what we can do is we can throw a new contact update exception. We can import that class. The message that we want to pass is going to be failed to update a contact with UUID. And we don't add the code, but we can add the previous exception, which is the one that we caught. And we can now do that, and there we go. And return, hey, not pound return. Return anything. So make it analyze, make sure we're looking good. Cheers, Marion. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Okay, so the builder update or fail. What we could possibly do first or fail, will that work? We just want to make sure that we catch, yeah, okay, so cool. So we can say that contact is that, and then we can say contact update or fail. Oops, just want that bit. Analyze that, make sure that's looking good. Yeah, we're looking good now. Cool, so basically let's do a first or fail and then update or fail. So this is purely just for static analysis. Don't try and do an insert if it doesn't exist. Might be better practice. I'll let you decide that one. And there we go, that's how we're going to update that. So now we can make a test. Let's see how that goes. Where were we? Okay, so now we're failing. Unexpected token. Why do I always add an M? I always add an M. Really weird. 53 tests, we're passing. So, handlers test. Contact was updated, we're hitting that, and that is fine. So, that is how we do that. So, again, as before, I will now walk you through how this actually works. So, let me just grab that and drop that in there. So, what we do, our endpoint, we hit our endpoint, our update controller, and what we're doing is we validate, as you do. In theory, we shouldn't have to do the first or fail, but because it's not the only way in to triggering that action, it's a safety net. That's all that is. So we might fail at this point on the update because we've passed a UUID that doesn't exist. Or it could be a soft deleted one. These things happen. Then we use our aggregate route. We retrieve based on the UUID passed in. Just something that I like to do. You don't have to do this. It just means that in my aggregate routes in the database, anything to do with any actions to do with this very specific contact is grouped under that one UUID. That's all. Then we update the contact by passing in a value object and the UUID, and we persist it, returning our response with an empty body, but we say that we've accepted that request. So when we look at the updated contact, all we're doing is we're recording a new event of the contact was updated. We're just passing marshalling values into another class. That's fine. So we create this new event and we just say, okay, just please record this event and return so we can persist. So this event, all we're doing is accepting a couple of parameters. This isn't going to be extended, so it can actually be final if we want it to be. It makes no difference. We can also add some doc blocks in there and make it look really pretty. We can add some doc blocks in here. Looking good, looking good. So we're recording that event basically, and because we've already set up our projectionist to kind of listen and marshal the events to the right place in our handler, if we come down to source handler, because that's domain specific, this isn't application specific, this is something we'd love to be able to pick up and put somewhere else later on if we wanted to. So in our handlers, our contact handler, we've got this is complaining, qualifier can be, okay, just replace it then. So on contact was updated, we've accepted that and we're going, okay, cool, so pass it off to this method here. Yeah, this action. That action will then try to find it based on the UUID pass through. In the current workflow, that isn't required because we're kind of double checking that UUID. However, because this is an action, a single action class that can be handled by many different things, we might not be checking this somewhere else. So it's that safeguard for trying to update something that doesn't exist. So we're just doing a very quick check. Does it exist? Yep, cool. So update it. Otherwise, throw in a very specific validation method saying that failed to update with a contact with a UUID of X. So we can then update and then we've updated. It's that simple. Don't need to return from that and we're looking good. As a handler, we're looking good. That could be final as well if we wanted it to be because it's not being extended. This could also be final. Yeah, a lot of these classes can now be final because we're not extending them and they just drop that fine because it's not a package. Just keeps things kind of clean and safe, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that is pretty much it. That is us refactored to event sourcing for contacts. So what I'm going to do now is I will get add. We're going to commit everything and refactoring standard Laravel application to thread sourcing. Just going to push that one up. So that's how simple it is. And as long as you're sensible with your refactors and you plan it sensibly at the same time, you're pretty much okay. I mean, there's extra things we could test. Don't get me wrong. We could go through and we could start testing a lot more. I mean, if I run, have in my make file, have I got a coverage test? No, I don't. So okay, so we'll quickly extend and add that. So this is what I'm using. I'm using a make file because I love make files for, especially when you're working with Docker. Things get pretty horrible quickly. So we can say, okay, so make coverage, PHP artisan test, or realistically we want vendor bin test coverage. So make coverage, and this will tell us, ooh, no coverage driver available. Okay, so there's a reason I haven't done that one yet. Okay, so what we'd want to do realistically is docker php docker file. This is PHP extensions. Peckle install Redis. So Peckle install xdebug and enable xdebug. So now if I run docker compose down, let's put it down, hopefully stop. That's good. So now I can docker compose build. Now that should hopefully now have xdebug installed. I don't know if it'll have the coverage enabled or anything, but we'll look at that. Ooh, Ribena strawberry is something else. That is for sure. So, oh, we failed. Okay, so it's struggling. I'll have a look at what I can do to get that installed for next time, because ideally we want to be able to do coverage tests and just see how we're getting on. But not to worry, that works. So yeah, where were we? Testing. So in our feature tests, I mean very little in our unit tests, really very little. I'm not going to worry about that. Traffic's failing, that's fine. I don't mind traffic failing. Can my test still run? That is the important thing, right? Can my test run? My actions test. So it can create a new contact, and we also want to say, like, I want, our actions, so it can update a contact. So what we need to do is basically what we were doing in the API almost. We need to say, okay, so our contact is a contact factory create. Simplify that one. So we've got a contact, great. So the next thing that we want to do is we'll just say, okay, so update contact action, handle. The UUID is going to be the contact UID. The attributes are going to be with strings, and then we can say string. Let's update it like this. Move that over and just drop that over there. So when we update that contact there, what we want to now do is go expect that contact, refresh it, and we want to check that the phone now equals the string. Let's test. Then we can test the unhappy path. So 59 passed, cool. So it throws an exception when trying to update a contact that does not exist. With UIDs, and it's going to throw contact update exception. We can simplify that one, and then we can just quite basically go just pass in that UUID. All of that. Ooh, okay, so I did that completely wrong, so bear with me. There we go, much better. Put that in there. Replace all of this. Scoop that name in there. And then we're going to have a string UID. Cool. And there we go, 65. So what we're doing is update contact. That's unhandled exception. That's fine. It's a test. Come on. I mean, we could, go really overboard with this sort of stuff. So we're going to just make sure that we're throwing the correct exception when that happens. We could even pass that message through, but we're not going to pass the message through because why? Why would we do it? Yeah, that is 65 tests. We've tested the action failing. Handlers test, we are testing updating a contact. We're testing the endpoint. We're testing pretty much every aspect that we need to test at this point. So, git add, git commit, testing the action for updating a contact to push. So that's me. That's just over 2 hours streaming. Unfortunately, it was in 2 parts because Welsh Internet disconnected me. Thank you, Welsh Internet. But as usual, usually in the description below, it might be on the last video, I will see what I can do to kind of like merge them together. I'll see what I can get done. There's a link for Discord. Feel free to join me. I'm always available on Discord. I might not be active constantly because I work full time. But I'm always about on Discord if anyone wants to kind of have a chat about anything they watched, or on Twitter at just Steve King. Give me a shout if you want to talk about any of what I've just done. Want any advice or anything like that. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you Thursday, I guess. Thursday, we have planned. What do we have planned? We are obviously carrying on with this project. We will be doing logging interactions. So we're going to be looking at, okay, now we've got a contact, I want to log some interaction against that contact. I've had a phone call with them, here's some notes. I've had something, basically. I've done something where he's a text message, an email, a phone call, something. I had a meeting, just logging those interactions against a contact. And again, what we're going to do it in a very basic way to start with, and then we're going to refactor that to event sourcing, because I don't like to start with event sourcing because you kind of get lost in the why and the what. So what I like to do is just go through and do it at a very basic level, so people understand the what and the why, and then when we refactor to event sourcing, there's no wondering what's going on in the background or the why we're doing stuff in the background. We've covered that, and then we're concentrating on the event sourcing aspect, just to kind of reiterate what event sourcing is, how we're using event sourcing, and why we're using event sourcing in this way. And the Discord link, I will go get that for you. And here we go. Discord is now on the screen. Discord short link. I will see what I can do to fix the stuff going on YouTube with me coming offline because of the internet and then restarting a live stream. But again, thank you very much. I'm going to spend some time with my wife now. I think we might watch some Hell's Kitchen. Go watch Gordon Ramsay yell at some people, which is always fun. But I will see you Thursday. Thank you very much for coming, and thanks for coming back if you got disconnected. So remember, like and subscribe so I know what interests people watching this. And other than that, I will see you later. Thank you very much. Have a good night and goodbye.